is breaking up!
BaRrY Dillon, Odin agent, a man barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. BaRrY Dillon will be that man. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
Боже мой! This is amazing! Can we actually create such a thing?
Can and did. I greenlit the project way back. So, about that promotion.
I want to see this bionic BaRrY.
Well, then you better pack a bag.
And what brings you to New York, Mr. Berg? Business or pleasure?
Oh, pleasure. Definitely pleasure.
When Prime Minister Netanyahu sought to establish Israel as a world-leading cyber power, he turned to Professor Isaac Ben Israel, a retired IDF general and former lawmaker who for years headed Israel's Defense and Research and Development Authority. Now, as Netanyahu seeks similar global status in the world of artificial intelligence, he's once again turned to Ben Israel to lead the way. And here's our interview. Let's take a look. Ben Israel, good to see you again. You are essentially Prime Minister Netanyahu's go-to guy for ambitious national projects aimed at turning Israel into a top-tier global provider for critical technologies. In 2010, you led the study that became Israel's national cyber program. Today, Israel is the world's third-ranking cybersecurity power, and its industry garners more than 20% of global investment in the field. You stood up something similar to much more mixed results in the field of commercial space. So tell us about this new initiative for artificial intelligence.
It's very simple. Israel's main driver of economy is what we call high-tech. Now, we have a very developed high-tech ecosystem, including all the necessary elements, for 30 years or 40 years now. What we did in 2010 is to take the ecosystem, the already existing ecosystem, and shift it a little bit towards a new subject matter, new theme, which is about cybersecurity. We did it fast enough before all the others realized this is going to be the next
big thing.
Big thing, and therefore we have those results that you mentioned. Now, for the last 2 years or so, I'm thinking, at the end of the day, although we were very fast to start it, the giants, the American giant on this hand and the Chinese giant on that direction, the giants already woke up and they started moving, and therefore we are going to lose our advantage. So we should do now something that will put us again one step forward before all the others. In Israel, everyone knows everyone. We can convene in one room and decide on a very coherent approach, coordinated, even if it's not formal coordination between all the elements. We should use this again for the next big thing.
So what benefits do you see in the security sphere? How, for example, can artificial intelligence help defend against cyber or anti-encryption threats that are very real and made even more real by the current crisis between Israel and Russia over Syria?
Well, first of all, we have two goals. One that you just mentioned is enhancing the security of Israel. But it's not the only goal. Another one, which I started to talk about, is the economical goal. We should enhance also the economy of Israel, okay? And we should find a way to balance between both. I mean, we don't want to have the one on the expense of the other. Coming back to security, of course, by using several technologies like AI, okay? AI enable us today because we have machines that can learn and can read a lot of data, what we call big data, okay? We can use it to, for example, to give you one example, to read everything that is published somewhere on the globe, including all the social networks and things like this. And then, before something happens, not afterwards, usually, you know, something happens afterwards, we say, we could guess it because he wrote in his Facebook, this terrorist, that is going to do this and that. We want to do it before it happens.
The ability to project or predict future threats, right?
Based on hints that are already spread all over the network or the media, okay? This is one example. Another example is improving. Even you take, for example, Israel is known in the world because of one system called Iron Dome. In the old time, you could build a system of interceptors, use it in the battlefield, then the engineers would collect data from the battlefield and think how to improve the algorithms that the system uses for interception, okay? Nowadays, we can do it almost automatically.
Automatically.
With the aid of machine learning, the computers which run the interception can learn how to improve from one interception to the next one. I can give you hundreds of examples like this.
So how long do you think it will take for Israel to establish itself among the top global providers of artificial intelligence technologies?
Well, it's difficult to predict, of course, but the goal, the mission that we got from the Prime Minister is to be there within 5 years, which gives you more or less a time frame. So we chose 5 sectors. 4 of them are civilian. One is, of course, security. Security is a sector by itself.
Where does the Treasury stand? Are they on board for funding?
Of course, the Treasury is on board as well. When I say on board, I mean we have committees which work on the plan. It doesn't mean that everyone agrees to everything, and judging from my previous experience, I would expect the Treasury to be a tough player here, because this is their job, and we should understand it.
We had a representative from IBM on the show recently talking about the company's testbed in the United States. This would require an enormous amount of investment on Israel's part. Are you looking for some security assistance funding from the United States?
It's too early to say. In the previous exercise that we did almost 10 years ago, this is the cyber one, we ended with an additional funding of $500 million shekels every year. I cannot tell you if it will be something in this order of magnitude or not. It's too early.
How big a role will international cooperation play in this new national AI project? It's always desirable, but it would require information sharing and technology transfer, correct?
This is usually, you see, we speak here about AI. Before we spoke about cybersecurity. It's all part of the global IT economy, okay? And without being global, we would not be in the place we are today. It doesn't mean that Intel or IBM or all the other multinational corporates will share their information free with everyone, including Israel. Today, the process, by the way, is almost the other way around. Today, all these MNCs are building huge R&D centers in Israel and develop the knowledge here in Israel.
And finally, will this artificial intelligence roadmap that you're preparing for the Prime Minister require the Ministry of Defense to lighten up on its export licensing restrictions?
Of course, it's part of the whole system. This is one of the advantages that we have, that here we all understand the environment. They all speak with each other, and there is no defense against the industry or something like this. We don't have this. We are too vulnerable to waste our time on false quarrels like this.
Itzik Ben Yisrael, we wish you and Eviatar Matanya, your partner in this initiative, all the best, and we look forward to following your progress.
One theme that came up a lot is concern about the centralization in AI. And in fact, Kai-Fu, in your book, you write that there is a possible centralizing force of AI, right? To the extent that AI, and some forms of AI, particularly machine learning, are based on data. More data can lead to better AI, which can lead you to getting more data. So you can have a centralizing force. So if we're basically all worried about that, what do? Macron has said we should have data sharing so that other companies can challenge the big companies. Other Europeans have said we should pursue antitrust against the big companies.
So data is a kind of another meaningless word. And here's what I would say. Oftentimes we talk about, if there's been a persistent theme at the forum this year, it has to do with data governance. But we're talking about data at a very, very top level. Here's a concrete example of why rules and regulation, I'm not in favor of regulation, but why we have to shift our thinking. The data, the corpora that are used to train not just the machine learning and deep learning algorithms, but the people who are learning those algorithms are a handful of common data sets. ImageNet is one of them. Humans created the images that are in this data set, and it was a very small group of people with a much smaller statistically worldview than a much bigger sample size might have. And that image set itself is riddled with bias and is not representative of the whole. And newer corpora that are used are being pulled from Wikipedia. Why? Because Wikipedia is pre-structured data and you don't have to clean it. Nobody in this room may care about all the weeds of the data pieces, but here's why it matters. It matters because these are the systems that on a very finite, minute level are being trained to make teeny tiny decisions that govern your everyday lives. Everybody is looking for some big event horizon where the AI takes over and things go horribly wrong. We are already living with systems that make these decisions on our behalf. I drive a car. When I back that car up into my garage, it automatically turns the stereo down because it senses objects around me. But I've never been in a car accident. I've never hit my garage backing in, but I no longer have any decision-making authority when I'm backing up my car, and that is because AI is not about finding a single solution. It is about optimization, and that is why we have to think about some kind of framework. Because if we allow it to just be governance to make these decisions on our behalves, our governments are also optimizing. And the end result of that is in a sort of, it's an amalgam where honestly nobody wins and all of us lose bit by bit. It's like being covered, it's like getting a handful of paper cuts that over time, your whole body winds up in paper cuts and we're still alive, but we're living much different lives than we did before.
David?
I would say, in part, answer to your question and to broaden it just a bit, we should, before we start thinking about new rules, and to Kai-Fu's point, we should start to really look at whether or not we're using the old rules properly. You don't want to pile rules upon rules upon rules. So, for example, if we're worried that monopolies are going to form, well, we've dealt with that in the past, and we should just, continue to think about monopolies the way we always have. When it comes to, rules about how AI should work, well, look, I think what we're really worried about, to kind of clarify your opening question in a sense, is I think people are becoming uncomfortable with computers automatically making decisions. Okay, I think that that's very different than AI, and I don't think it's good to conflate the two. Now remember, computers have automatically been making decisions for a long time. When you hop into an airplane and fly to Davos, there's a computer automatically making decisions, piloting this aircraft, and if the computer isn't programmed correctly, you might be dead. And when you use virtually any modern technology, computers these days are increasingly making decisions for you. Some of them might very well be life-threatening. Others might be more mundane. So the question is, well, how do you handle that? Well, I mean, we've handled it very well. So with, for example, the computers controlling airplanes, there's a very in-depth certification process. You can't just roll some software out in an autopilot system and see if it works. The FAA and other organizations have developed extensive testing protocol for that problem. And so as drones were invented, right? So now drones, it turns out, have, they can be misused. So now people are inventing rules to allow drones, which often have AI in them, to allow them to fly on their own. But it's not the AI or whatever's going on inside the controller in the drone. It's specific to a drone.
In those examples, though, the key difference is those are systems that make automated decisions. This next era is systems making decisions and then learning, and then creating a next generation of autonomous decision making.
I think you're presuming AI is going to be all capable. AI is just a tool that learns on data. A lot of other hypotheses have been made, but so far all we have is a machine that learns on data. It doesn't really invent new capabilities and learn new concepts. It's not creative. And I think the tasks that AI does for us, I'm happy to delegate to it. I like to think my life has a higher purpose than how my car and stereo work together. I love the automation, I love the autopilots. Then I can spend my time creating new algorithms, love the people I love, and these are not tasks that we were meant to do. So I think automation is great. Now there are some risks involved, and we can look at those risks one at a time. Also on the large amount of data, I think is very, very fixable. I think we tend to get fixated on, Amazon made some mistakes in hiring and some other company couldn't recognize African Americans. Well, those are simple mistakes that are very fixable by having a large data set. Largeness partly fixes the problem. Guaranteeing balanced and demographic match, I think, fixes the rest. And I think when we challenge a system, an AI of saying, well, you have all this bias, we should think, do humans have less or more bias? I'm not condoning AI for having bias, but I'm guaranteeing if we have the right data set on simple decisions, there will definitely be less bias by AI systems than the average person doing it.
But you have to fix those corpora, those data sets. And,
yes.
And my point is,
yes, it's fixable.
It is fixable. Yeah. Nobody's fixing them. They're
that's
not.
Exactly why we have this
Jim, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, no, I think, I'm just cautious that we shouldn't be naive about this technology. There's kind of two extremes which are concerning. The early extreme of a new technology is like, we don't know what we're dealing with, so we'll make mistakes because we don't know. And so when we invented the car, suddenly it ran pretty fast. And when it ran into people died, and so we had to figure out how to deal with that. So now we have autonomous vehicles, and we have airbags and what have you. And the other extreme is when you use technology and use it for the extreme. You want, access to data, and data feeds the intelligence. But you want to lose your privacy. And so where's the borderline between giving access to data and losing your privacy? You want to have platforms, because platforms allows you to, collect and leverage this breadth of the platform and create the gravity around it. Well, you don't want to create monopolies. So again, there's an extreme. And on the algorithms, I think you have a very important point that, when they begin to self-learn, do you want to lose control? You don't think that that's a risk, that, we might have a confined area where we ask it to do a certain thing, but eventually you may lose control because, where's the limitation to what it learns?
Well, so, Amitabh, you want to jump in?
Innovation will always be ahead of rules and regulations.
Yes, that's a hard one.
Yeah, and you bringing in too many rules and regulations ahead of time will stifle innovation. Yeah. And my view is that artificial intelligence is another challenge because you're dealing with individual private data, and you're dealing with a black box of ethics on algorithms. And therefore, it's very important because your objective is really to use artificial intelligence to transform humanity and transform for the benefit of all. And therefore, to ensure that artificial intelligence doesn't remain an elitist force, it's very important to build a global alliance cutting across countries, corporates, individuals, academicians, researchers, much like what was done for particle physics when CERN. And CERN really came out with the broad principles, the norms, the ethics, and those were then subsequently followed across by all countries and all corporates. So you need some principles, some guiding force, some broad norms, but too much of regulations at this stage will stifle the big force of innovation.
That I'll leave to the last. So first, the good news. Israel has never been stronger militarily. Tremendously strong. That's an F-35 fighter plane, the most advanced in the world. That's an Iron Dome interceptor and many other systems that we developed with the help of America. Thank you, America. Thank you, successive American presidents. Thank you, Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike. Thank you, AIPAC, for helping bring this about. You're terrific. And this incredible military is buttressed by superb intelligence, unmatched in the world. Can you see me? I can hardly see you. I have to get closer. Yeah, I see you. That's good. Superb intelligence. You know, in the last few years, Israel's incredible intelligence services have foiled dozens of major terrorist attacks across the world in dozens of countries. That plane, a plane like that, could have been blown out of the sky if it weren't for Israeli intelligence. A plane heading from Australia to the Persian Gulf. You're boarding planes when you leave this place. You are safer because of Israeli intelligence. It not only protects Israeli lives, it protects innocent lives around the world. And we're able to do all this because of the extraordinary soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, men and women. Just look at them. Men and women, black and white, religious and secular, gay and straight, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Druze, Circassians. They come from different backgrounds, but they're united with a common mission to protect the state of Israel. They keep us safe. They make us proud. Thank you. Now I know there are quite a few veterans of the Israeli army here, so I want you to stand up. I want you to be recognized. Stand up. Stand up. But the good news doesn't stop merely with Israel's strong military. It continues with Israel's strong economy. It's a tremendously strong economy. And I'll tell you, we made it stronger by moving Israel to free market principles, which unleashed the spark of genius embedded in our people into innovation, entrepreneurship. And there's a revolution taking place. This couldn't happen at the better time. Look at the 10 leading companies in 2006. 5 energy companies, one IT company, Microsoft. And a mere 10 years later, 2016, a blink of an eye in historical terms, it's completely reversed. 5 IT companies, 1 energy company left. The true wealth is in innovation. You know these these companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, guess what? They all have research centers in Israel. All of them, major research centers. And they're not alone, there are hundreds more. And there's a reason, something is going on. It's a great change. It's, you want to hear jargon? It's one sentence. This is a terrible sentence, but I have no other way to say it. It's the confluence of big data, connectivity, and artificial intelligence, okay? Did you get that? You know what that does? It revolutionizes old industries and it creates entirely new industries. So here's an old industry that Israel was always great in, agriculture. We're always good in agriculture. But now we have precision agriculture. You know what that is? See that drone in the sky? He's connected to a big database. And there are sensors in the field. And in the field, there's drip irrigation and drip fertilization. And now we can target, with this technology, the water that we give, the fertilizer that we give, down to the individual plant that needs it. That's precision agriculture. That's Israel. Unbelievable. You know, we were always good in water. I want you to see how good we are. So we recycle almost 90% of our wastewater. The next country with less than 20% is Spain. You can see how Israel, what it does for water, what it does for the environment. So when you take these two things, agriculture and water, and the other technologies that we apply in both, we can change the world. We are. We are. I just heard about an African woman in Africa has to walk 8 hours a day to give water to her children. 4 hours one way to a well, 4 hours back. And a young Israeli company brought in this technology that improves on Moses. Remember Moses? He brought water from a rock. They bring water from thin air. They bring water to Africa, to millions of people in Africa. Israeli technology. And I was just recently in India. That's my friend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Great friend. I'm showing him cherry tomatoes. This is in Gujarat, India. This is Israeli technology. And what I heard there was fantastic. Farmers came from the region. There's an experimental farm there and a place where Israel gives technology know-how to Indian farmers. 65% of India's population are farmers. And one farmer after the other gets up and says, because of Israeli technology, I've increased my crop yields and my income 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Israel is changing the world in India, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, everywhere. These are the old industries. Now they're new industries. Israel is literally, how can I say this? Israel is literally driving the world. I'm talking about autonomous vehicles. Israel is a world leader in autonomous vehicles. 500 tech companies that sprang out almost instantaneously. And one of them, Mobileye, up there on the left, was just sold to Intel for the paltry sum of $15 billion. But the interesting thing is that Intel said to them, here are the keys to our 30 worldwide autonomous vehicle businesses. You run it. Israeli technology is driving the world. And one last industry, there are many more, but one more that you're all familiar with. You have bank accounts? You should. Okay. Well, you don't want anyone hacking into them, right? Or into your cars, or into the planes you ride. You need cyber security. Everybody needs cyber. Israel has become a world leader in cyber security. Look at how much they invest in the hundreds of Israeli startup companies, tremendous companies. But here's another factor that you should know. Israel's population is how much? Who knows? Class? 8 million, it's closer to 9, but it's about between 8 and 9 million, that's correct. And what percentage of that is of the world's population? Oh, come on. It's 1/10 of 1%. So what percentage do we get of the world global investment in cybersecurity, in private investment in cybersecurity? We're 1/10 of 1% of the world's population, and we get a whopping 20% of global private investment in cyber. We're punching 200 times above our weight. Not 2 times, not 10 times, not 100 times, 200 times above our weight. That's one heck of a punch. Now here's how the dots connect. Because we have this tremendous capacity for security and intelligence, and because we have this tremendous capacity for civilian technology, for making the lives of people richer, safer, more productive, many countries are coming to Israel because they want to share with us these benefits. And that creates the third great change, which is a flourishing of Israel's diplomatic relations around the world. You know, when I joined the Foreign Service 105 years ago, as the DCM to this city, Washington, the #2 in our embassy, I think we had about 80 or 90 countries with whom we had diplomatic relations. Now the number is 160, and there are very few countries left. By the way, what are we doing with Greenland? We got to do something with Greenland. Where's my advanced team? Go to Greenland. They must have some satellite needs or something that we could do there. But we're coloring the world blue. I've been to Africa 3 times in 18 months. I've been to South America, Latin America. Can you imagine? In the 70 years of history of Israel, a prime minister of Israel never went south of Texas. I mean, I love Texas, but yeah, I do. But we went to Argentina. We went to Argentina, to Colombia, to Mexico, and they say, come back, we want more. That is changing. All these countries are coming to us. India, China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, all of them, Azerbaijan, Muslim countries. First time I visited Australia, tremendous. Far away though. So we're coloring the world blue. And you know what? The numbers, you remember people talked about Israel's isolation? Remember that? Israel's isolation? Pretty soon, the countries that don't have relations with us, they're going to be isolated. There are those who talk about boycotting Israel. We'll boycott them. So, the good news is very good, and it's getting better. The bad news, and that's the bad news, is that bad things are getting worse, and they're very bad. And when I talk about that, we have to deal with this challenge. And I'm thinking specifically, what do we do about Iran? The force behind so much of what is bad is this radical tyranny in Tehran. If I have a message for you today, it's a very simple one. We must stop Iran. We will stop Iran. When I last spoke here, I tried to warn the world about a nuclear deal that was a threat to the survival of Israel, the security of the region, the peace of the world. I warned that Iran's regime had repeatedly lied to the international community that it could not be trusted. I warned that the deal gives Iran a clear path towards developing a nuclear arsenal in little more than a decade. And I warned that by removing Iran's sanctions, Iran's regime would not become more moderate and peaceful, but more extreme and belligerent, much more dangerous. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what has happened. Here is what Iran is doing today. Can you enlarge that?
A yes-no question for you. Does Israel have nuclear capabilities and nuclear weapons? Yes or no?
We've always said that we won't be the first to introduce it, so we haven't introduced it.
But that's not an answer to the question. Do you have them or do you not?
It's as good an answer as you're going to get.
But what I'm saying is, if disclosure matters so much, what message does it send when you won't confirm something that is widely believed by the entire international community? How does that inspire the spirit of disclosure?
I said that it's not the spirit of disclosure, it's commitment, specific written commitment by Iran as part of the deal to disclose what it has. Iran undertook that specific commitment.
I understand, but you know what their take on it is that you won't even confirm that you have nuclear weapons when the world already believes that you do. Why? Why keep that quiet?
Well, you can make all your assumptions. One thing is clear, Israel is not threatening the annihilation of any country. And as time passes, Iran will get a nuclear arsenal. So now you hear other countries in the region saying, we want nuclear weapons too. Or rather, we want unlimited enrichment, nuclear enrichment of uranium, the way Iran gave it. If Iran has it, why shouldn't we have it? So in fact, what this thing is doing, nobody said that about Israel. You may think about Israel what you want for decades. Nobody cared. But as soon as they understood that this regime in Tehran, this murderous terrorist regime that wants to conquer all the Middle East and is sending its terrorist tentacles throughout the world, the minute they understood that it has a clear path to nuclear arsenal, everybody now in the Middle East is trying to get their hands on nuclear weapons. Not a good idea. So if you want peace, the crucial thing is don't let Iran get a clear path to the bomb. That's what that deal does. And I think if you want to assure the peace and security of the Middle East and the world, you can't let that happen.
Listen, you make a lot of strong points about that. Obviously, less is the only direction to go with nuclear capabilities, not more. And your points about the risk that Iran poses in the region, let alone with its nuclear capabilities, are well known and echoed by many of your allies.
And, I think we could be on the brink of war. Now, what's incredible about this is why doesn't the U.S., my country, I've also got a British passport as well, why don't we talk about what Israel's doing with regard to all those nuclear weapons and how Israel had threatened European capitals? If you look at the background of this, Israeli military researcher, historian Martin van Crayfeld had actually threatened European cities with annihilation with those 200 to 400 nuclear weapons that Israel reportedly had.
Note that all the members of that mafia are right now in the Strategic Partners Lounge right there. I think Amy will probably need someone else to badger in. David.
Well, I'll start with the old joke about AI research from back in the 80s when I first got involved with this stuff. And it was basically that once you got it to work in a computer, it was no longer AI. It was just software. And which discouraged us because we have something really cool going on and they say, oh, that's nothing, that's just some code you wrote. And really, let's just, again, to level set, AI today is really just code running in a computer, and it's very hard for anyone, I think, to distinguish between regular software and AI software. So I think the issue is not what to do about AI, it's a broader issue, which is what to do about software, and in particular, the intersection of software and big data. Because we're really more, in my opinion, in a big data era rather than an AI era. I'm not discounting the incredible capabilities that machine learning has and so forth, but I think in the end, most of the big issues are actually more focused on data.
artificial intelligence will transform our lives in ways we can't yet imagine. It promises to break down mental barriers, unleash creativity, and boost the human spirit.
Artificial intelligence is the general name for many families of methods that actually mimic cognitive function that people associate with human mind.
And just like humans learn language by experiencing language in their family, we would like to have computers learn language by experiencing language in the world.
Commercial use of AI is now done by most of the companies. You can see it in retail, you can see it in banking, in companies like Amazon that will use AI to decide what product they should offer each of their customers.
I use artificial intelligence to analyze optical fiber sensors data. The optical fiber can be deployed for tens of kilometers. It is used for many applications such as border monitoring or structural health monitoring or even biomedical applications.
Researchers working on the way that a robot can move and find targets within cities. So we are not talking only about military application, but for example, how to help elderly people to move around the city. The uniqueness of Tel Aviv University is the fact that it sits in the heart of what we call the startup nation. A radius of 20 miles, you can find the most technological startups.
There's a lot of competition between us and huge software companies such as Google, Facebook, and so on. And having good funds to keep talented students in the university is one of the main benefits.
Smart transportation, mobility patterns, cybersecurity applications. And this is exactly the blend that Tel Aviv University represents so well.
Tel Aviv University will keep studying the interface between man and machine to reinforce Israel's technological edge and to create a better, smarter tomorrow. Be part of the next big idea. Welcome to Tel Aviv University.
Some form of development for 400 years. There was an AI winter in the 80s. There's a resurgence now.
Yeah, I was in it.
Sure. So then you know.
Yeah.
Well, generative adversarial networks is one way that we've started to push forward, and so
they make fake videos and sounds.
I'm not talking about the fake videos. So Alpha Zero.
Alpha Zero only works in very controlled domain with today.
Why don't we unpack what we're talking about so everybody understands?
It's a giant leap.
Well, but it's not a giant leap
of
because
an exponential curve.
So
we're talking about
non-researcher scientists telling me it's doable.
We're talking about a single algorithm capable now of learning multiple things at once. Multitask learning.
All with absolutely concrete, definite feedback of right and wrong. It doesn't apply in financial markets, which is arguably closest to it. It doesn't apply in autonomous driving.
Yeah, so I think much of the debate can really come down to a disagreement about how rapidly this technology is going to advance.
That's fair.
So I would agree that if RoboCop or something like that were 5 years away, then we have to all start to work really hard to solve the problem of what do you do about that kind of potentially destructive technology. But I'm with you, which is I think that the advances will be substantially slower than most people think. That doesn't mean that we won't be able to make medical breakthroughs with machine learning and maybe partially solve the self-driving car problem with machine learning and so on. There will be plenty of great cures. It's all going to be good, but we're not going to get to, in my opinion, probably in our lifetimes, to this sort of diabolical state where the machines are taking over. I don't think it will happen.
I don't want to spend too much time debating how fast this is going to go, because that's an awesome debate. We'll take all our time. Let me go to one specific question where I think we might have a difference of opinion. So one thing that artificial intelligence is really good at is image recognition, right? We all agree on that. One thing that image recognition is really useful for is drone warfare. So a drone can identify a person and see who it is. So there's the ethical question of whether a drone with highly powerful artificial intelligence manned entirely as a machine without a human should be able to make a kill decision, should be able to fire a missile at someone it identifies as someone who's on a kill list. Various people, Ash Carter has said, no, we would never do that in the United States military. Macron has said, no, we would never do that in the French military. They've made very specific statements about that. But it sounds like maybe the two of you think that.
Well, look, I mean, there's an ethical question as to whether or not we should use drones to assassinate people.
But should there be
a human in the loop?
Should there be a human in the loop?
There is
Yes, that's why I'm saying we can't lose control.
Well, there are humans in the loop. Okay, if the human
so yes,
will write.
no?
Yeah, no, there should be humans in the loop too. But
All of the
humans are writing the
had
software.
humans
They don't have to push the button.
So we can want humans in the loop. There's also something called guardian algorithms, and one of the things, we keep getting stuck on immediate practical applications. I'm a quantitative futurist. My job is to model, using data, model the future. So while I'm fascinated by the practical applications and I understand that there's a business incentive, I'm thinking much farther down the road. And so one of the challenges is we can want humans to be in the loop all we want. In order for the advancements to be made to get to those practical applications, uncertainty is key, and we need to start systems to start behaving in unpredictable ways. Once we have systems behaving in unpredictable ways, we're not entirely sure, where things might go next. And we can want to keep a human in the loop, but the reality is we're already designing systems that are predicated on creating and maintaining unpredictability so that we can learn from the results of that.
But back to the drone question specifically. So just to clarify your question, who is picking the target? So is the target identified by some human, and then the drone system is going to figure out who that so it depends, okay? Now remember, but I just want to be clear to everyone that I think that there are ethical issues of using drones this way, period. But I don't think it's a question of what is the software doing. I think it's a bigger question about should drones be used this way, period.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree on the issue. We obviously don't want that to happen. And I would think it's controlled by more laws that manage weapons and assassination.
Okay, so let's flip it though. Let's flip it. If we're all agreeing you need a human in the loop for a kill decision.
I'm not sure I do.
No, I don't either.
I'm not sure. No. Because if all the governments can agree to have human in the loop, what about non-state actors? What about terrorists? How do you control that?
Well, we can't. So.
Well, and what if I can prove to you that drones will be more reliable? Let's just assume that we all agree drones are okay to assassinate people. Yep. So I don't agree with that. But what if I could prove to you through scientific testing that by using machine learning and some software I developed, that it was much less likely that let's call it the AI-based system would make a mistake, kill innocent people. Which one would you pick?
That makes it even more complicated. You can flip it around and say, what if it's for missile defense? Right? What if the AI will definitely be better and can be for missile defense and save lives as opposed to killing people? You have a very different moral question. But it does seem like we disagree slightly on this in interesting ways. So I'm going to go back to something that Amitabh said, because I think this is one of the key things in this conversation, which is about data sharing and cooperation. So let's talk about, we also seem to all agree that there can be ways that data should be shared, data sets could be opened up. How could this work across companies, across countries? What is the role of government?
Thank you. It's good not to see you. A few years ago, I decided to establish Israel as one of the 5 leading cyber powers in the world. And I think by all accounts, we're there. But the jury in cybersecurity is always out, and it's a constant challenge. Cybersecurity is serious business. It's serious business for 2 reasons. The first reason is that it's a serious and growing threat. And it's a growing threat everywhere. Because every single thing is being digitized. The distinction between high-tech and low-tech is rapidly disappearing. And as that happens, one country after another, in one industry after another, in one critical infrastructure after another. And as we enter the world of the Internet of Things, the need for cybersecurity is growing exponentially. This is a problem for all governments, not only to protect their military or the security organizations or the critical infrastructure, their businesses and every single organization. How you approach this is something that governments grapple with inside the net can communicate with each other, not only to respond to attacks, but to prevent them by early warning, prevent them also by guidance, by teaching systemic doctrine to the extent that it can be systemic in this business. We are experiencing every month dozens of cyber attacks on the national level, and at any given moment, including right now, there are probably 3 to 5 attacks on the national level that emanate from various sources, the usual suspects and a few others. So we have set up our own system. It's constantly evolving, and the 100 or so big companies that have joined and organizations that have joined the CyberNet is growing. More will follow. I predict at the end just about everybody will be there because everyone needs it. And we are ready to cooperate with other countries, ready to cooperate with governments, because in general, again, with some reservations, we're better together. The second reason why cybersecurity is serious business is because it's a great business, because it's growing geometrically, because, forgive me, all of you are in this business, because there's never a permanent solution. Never. Never. It's an endless business. Remember that, any of you old enough to remember Mad Magazine? Remember Spy versus Spy? This is Spy versus Spy, except that it's done at a very fast pace, which is constantly increasing. So the battle for market share in a fast-growing market is open to anyone, although there are certain requirements and I think certain barriers to entry. But this produces an endless crop of companies. We in Israel have, I haven't counted 600, 700 startups, and they're continuously added and weeded out, added and weeded out. This is a fast, geometrically rising market, and you have to be chess players, except you have to be speed chess players. This is what Israel excels at. This is why it's a great advantage today in this business to come from Israel. Let me say a few words in Hebrew. פעם זה היה חיסרון לומר שאתה בא מישראל. היום, אתה מדבר על סייבר או על טכנולוגיה מתקדמת, זה יתרון לומר, אני חברה ישראלית. יתרון גדול. רוצים אותנו בכל העולם, ומכל העולם באים הנה. למשל, עכשיו יהיה כאן ביקור של ראש ממשלת הודו, אחד מראשי הממשלה החשובים בעולם, עם הכלכלה השלישית בעולם, שגדלה במהירות. הוא רוצה בהידוק היחסים בישראל בהרבה תחומים, במים, בחקלאות, בבריאות, אבל גם בסייבר. ויש לו סיבה טובה מאוד לעשות את זה. I just said that. You have translation for that? So I just said that most of the governments, in fact, all of the governments in the world that I come into contact with want cooperation with Israel on high tech. And just about every one of them wants cooperation with us on cyber technology, cyber security technology. And of course, this is going to come to full expression in the upcoming visit of the Prime Minister of India, my friend Narendra Modi, who's coming here in a few days. We look forward to receiving him. This is an expression of the change in Israel's status. There used to be a thing called the Arab boycott. Remember that? Well, that's dissipated for many, many reasons, strategic and others. But the prominence of Israel in the technological field and in the cyber field made Israeli companies very, very attractive. Because we have a lot of speed chess players, because we have hundreds of startups, because we have demonstrable success in providing solutions for a while in this rapidly changing sphere, Israel has become an attractive target for cybersecurity investment. And I think if I tally it, roughly as we can see, 2016, we have about 20% of the global private cybersecurity investment around the world. The fact that you're thank you all for coming to do cyber business here in Israel. Seriously, thank you.
Work best when it's built in closed loop. I'm just stating a technical issue. So just getting a lot of faces and speech isn't going to push you ahead, way ahead of the others. The reason the Amazon data, the Facebook data is so powerful is that it's taken in context and used in context for business. So that's kind of one thing we need to be aware of. That's these 9 companies' advantage in business. But having said that, I think sharing data in a way that doesn't affect privacy is a great thing, because if we want these 9 companies not to dominate, we want to give the smaller entrepreneurs, the universities, a chance. So collecting greater data sets, following some rules that we don't hurt people's privacy, I think will advance research, and that would be a good thing.
And how do we do it?
No, I think that's a very important point, and I think that's one which is the positive conversation here rather than the killing of people. So it is a fact that we are collecting data today, and I totally agree with you. Once it's in context, the data gets so much more valuable. At Siemens, we took the data scientists and put them in the factory where we actually design and build the trains. And because they sat next to the people who actually design and build the trains, the speed in which we understood the data was dramatically improved. It became much more relevant. And today we can predict, with 98% likelihood, 10 days before a door jams, that it's going to jam because the engineer was part of the equation. So I totally agree with that. The point I'm making is that if we want to accelerate innovation, we argue that AI can solve many of the problems of this world, sustainable energy, water, what have you. Most of the SDGs have a technical solution where AI plays a role in there. Then we want to accelerate innovation to solve those problems, improve humanity, then we got to share the data. So it seems we collect more data on physical things than most companies. I'm sure Google would give an arm and a leg to get to our data. But I would like to share it with everyone and not monopolize it, because if I do that, then more companies can build on top of my data and better my solutions.
Is there any data that you wouldn't want to share?
Well, there's a privacy issue. So I do want to make sure that if I share the data, I don't create a privacy issue. But so for instance, in healthcare, we have a lot of data on people's health. I would like to share that so that we can improve our therapy. But I don't want to share it with the information about who's the patient and what's the record, or the history of that patient.
I think so.
But I don't see a reason why we would monopolize the access to data. Now, being a businessman, that might sound crazy, but I actually believe it's super important that we set a set of rules where also small companies get access to data, because otherwise we will kill all the small companies.
So just giving you the example of India, where data was actually a lot of innovations being done in terms of data, which is held by public entities. Aadhaar, which is the biometric of all individuals, or digital payments. All the banks are connected through the unified payment interface. But we've opened that up. We've allowed Google to come in and do Google Pay. We've allowed WhatsApp to come and do a payment interface with that. So our belief is that you need public, it's like a public road. Data is like a public road. Allow private sector to come in and innovate on that. Allow startups to come and innovate on that. You can't allow your 400 startups working on artificial intelligence in India to be starved of data. So you open up all that data to them, or allow academicians and researchers to work on that. So for us, our belief is that all data is held by public entities, but allow innovation to take place on that.
So you're saying all public data, government health records, should be opened up in some anonymized way.
Absolutely.
Should the government have a role?
In an anonymous manner.
Should the government
we do that
to private companies saying you want to share some of your data too?
So yes? On images,
I think that is necessary because of the network effect of the digital world.
And where am I in all this? So
So the ultimate beneficiary is the consumer. Ultimate beneficiary when you're providing medical records in an anonymous manner for Tata Medical Cancer Institute, which is going to do further research on this. The ultimate beneficiary is the consumer, the citizens.
I need to pause for a second to make a PSA, which is if you are in the audience or you are on the web, we're going to move to audience questions soon. So you go to wef.ch.ask. They will appear on my iPad. You can vote up people's questions. Now back to regular scheduled programming. Amy.
Yeah, I mean, just so a couple things. This is where country restrictions come into play. So in the United States, we have some companies working on tremendous systems, machine learning systems that can detect cancers, for example, strange cancers that nobody knows about. The problem is that those data are locked up in EMRs, which are electronic medical record systems. So while we do not have GDPR issues in the United States, we have HIPAA compliance regulations in the United States, and everybody has their own proprietary system where those data are locked up. As a result, researchers have had to develop synthetic data sets because it's something you got to train these things so that they continue to learn. Those data are created by people, and we've seen lackluster results at the end of that. But at the end of the day, we are the ones generating that data, and the average person has, just by virtue of being alive in the year 2019, we are, all of us sitting in this room, we're all generating data right now, every single one of us, and we are all smart people. And most of us are not aware of what all of those data are, how they are being mined, refined, productized, and monetized. And ultimately, a lot of the big players are funneling us into a system where they own all the data. So we are moving into a future in which we have personal data records, a single data set that is likely to be owned, again, in the future, not today, by one or two entities, and we are not the custodians, we individual consumers. Those data are not heritable.
But that can be changed.
David, do you want to jump in?
Welcome, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm pleased to be here with Professor Yosef Klafter, the president of Tel Aviv University, Professor Yitzhak Ben Israel, who alerted me a few years ago to a book, a fictional book on cyber war between China and the United States. I read it over one night, didn't sleep, and said, we better do something. So we did, and Aviatar Netanyahu was here, just met me, was a professor here, was appointed as director of cybersecurity. We put together a plan. It is now being implemented by Yigal Luna, who's the head of our National Cyber Directorate. I'm pleased to see him here too. Orna Berry, who received the Cyber Prize, much deserved. And so many others who are here, including, I understand, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Is he here? Yeah, where is he? Well, Jean-Claude, you know that cybersecurity is a true blood sport. Much worse, actually. So it's great to join all of you, over 8,000 attendees from 60 countries for our Cyber Week. I want to talk about the glorious future we have and the horrible threats that endanger it. This conference addresses one of the great challenges facing humanity, how to protect our devices, airplanes, networks, anything with electronics. So today I have one message for anyone seeking to defend themselves from cyber attack. What happened?
Ladies and gentlemen, this conference has just been hacked. Ironic, isn't it? A conference dedicated to cybersecurity being hacked. We are based in a country not far from Israel. That's all you need to know for now. The bank accounts of everyone sitting in this hall have just been frozen. The intellectual property of your companies is in our hands. So are your private conversations. This information is being sent to your competition and your enemies. Have a nice day.
This is not far-fetched. In the jargon, they say state actors could do much worse. Not state actors, states. States can do much worse. They can do everything that you heard here and much more. They can cripple our most sensitive systems. They can even take over, literally take over some of those vital systems. And it is not something that is theoretical in the future. It's already happening in the present, as you well know. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have companies. There wouldn't be this thriving business if there wasn't this amazing threat to our banks, our airplanes, even our weapons. Stuart Russell is a professor of computer science at Berkeley, and he painted the following scenario. A very, very small quadcopter, 1 inch in diameter, can carry a 1 or 2 gram shaped charge. You can program the code to say, here are thousands of photographs of the kinds of targets I want, the kind of things I want to target. You can fit about 3 million of those small quadcopters in a semi-tractor trailer. You can drive up 195 with 3 trucks and have 10 million weapons attacking New York City. They don't have to be very effective. Only 5 or 10% of them have to find the target. There will be manufacturers producing millions of these weapons. You need only 3 guys to program and launch them. So you can just imagine that in many parts of the world, humans will be hunted. They will be cowering underground in shelters, devising techniques so they don't get detected. They could be here in a few years. This is the easy scenario. There are worse. Now, I think that we can defend ourselves against this. And I think that it's an ever-present race. It's not guaranteed. We have to keep running ahead in order to stay ahead. But it is going to be increasingly challenging. The reason it's going to be increasingly challenging is because there's unbelievable growth and opportunity in the digital age. So before we talk about anything else, I want to say that we are absolutely committed to protecting ourselves, both our country and others, against this and other kinds of cyber challenges. That's a fact. Israel receives today about 20% of the global investment, private investment in cybersecurity. That's a lot, given that we are 1/10 of 1% of the world's population. This means that we're punching about 200 times above our weight. Here are the sales that we actually received. You see it going up. It'll go further and further up because of the private investment, in Israel, because of the obvious need and the fact that Israel has become a focal point. My goal was to make Israel, 8 years ago, to make Israel one of the 5 leading cyber powers in the world. I think we've reached that. I think we're actually maybe even further ahead on that list. The Israeli cybersecurity industry exports $38.8 billion last year, investments approaching $1 billion. Cybersecurity companies, we have about 420, international R&D centers 50, and we're ranked in the top 10% in cyber academic research. We have also advanced in Beersheba a cybersecurity center. It's a peculiar one because it has several things adjoining each other, and I'll point them out to you. First thing is we have the Unit A200 headquarters, which is going to be placed here. This is Ben Gurion University. This is right on the campus. So here's our collection agency. Here's the university. Railroad fast line to Tel Aviv. University is here. The search center here. The park is growing all the time. We invite you to join it. The leading cybersecurity companies in the world are coming to Beersheba. Please come and take a look at it, and we'd like you to stay. There is an idea here. The idea is that within 200 meters, you can have military, academic, and business talk to each other. This idea has profound benefits because people, minds fertilize each other when they meet. Still in the digital age, meeting and talking has tremendous advantages. There's also a risk involved, always a risk. The risk is a security risk, especially vis-a-vis our military applications or security applications that involve state security. But I'm willing to take on that risk. I take it on because I think that cyber security grows through cooperation, and cybersecurity as a business is tremendous. We have sunk cost. This is a huge sunk cost. We spend an enormous amount on our military intelligence and Mossad and Shin Bet, an enormous amount. An enormous part of that is being diverted to cybersecurity. Since we have this sunk cost, we think there is a tremendous business opportunity in the never-ending quest for security. Let me tell you what we're trying to protect. We're in a world that is undergoing a profound transformation, a truly historic revolution. Here are the 10 largest companies in the world in 2006, 5 energy companies in black, 1 IT company, 3 financial, 1 IT, Microsoft. You move forward a mere 10 years and it's completely reversed. 5 IT companies and 1 energy company left. Exxon went from number 1 to number 5. Why is this happening? It's happening in a speed that we've never seen in the economic history of mankind. What we're seeing now is the confluence of big data, artificial intelligence, and connectivity. That is not merely transforming old industries, it's creating entirely new industries. You're sitting in an entirely new industry, a conference in a new industry that didn't exist before. It creates its own demand. It grows, probably grows exponentially. Here are some other industries that we have in Israel. We're developing them. Not only cybersecurity. How about precision agriculture? Drones in the sky, sensors on the ground. We have already broken into the field of, or embarked on the field of fertilization, drip irrigation and drip fertilization too. So now, using the data and these drones, we can target water and fertilizer down to the individual plant. Understand what enormous changes in productivity this gives us. And this is something that is appreciated around the world in many, many countries, in many continents. The second example is smart mobility. We have 500 tech companies, 4,000 entrepreneurs, 250 research groups, again, based on that same principle, big data, artificial intelligence, connectivity. So Waze was sold for a pittance, for $1 billion to Google. Everybody understands its use, new demand, new industry. Mobileye was sold for $15 billion to Intel. New demand, new industries, potentially revolutionary industries. Everybody wants their banks protected. Everybody wants to eat food at a reasonable price. Everybody wants to have, to be able to move around effectively and safely. And then, of course, we have the greatest challenge, the greatest possibility of all in terms of industries, the greatest, which is digital health. We've just taken about 1 billion shekels in government funding to create a new industry. And the new industry does this. We have 98% of our population with digital health records. So you know what a person has done in the last 20 years, its entire medical record. It doesn't make a difference if you go to a hospital in Beersheba, a hospital in Tel Aviv, or Jerusalem. We have that database of a diversified population. Our people come from 100 lands, and it covers virtually everybody in the population. Of that, we're taking a subset of 100,000 saliva tests. So we have now a genetic subset of 100,000 to that database. And of that, we take another subset of 2,000 people, and we monitor them physiologically, treadmills and the like. So now we have a 3-layered database: general population, genetic, physiological, and now we're going to run algorithms on it. And those algorithms will enable us, we hope, to develop personalized medicine and develop preventive medicine and who knows what else. There are privacy issues here, huge. Legal issues, huge. We're overcoming them. This is the biggest industry of them all, potentially. Biggest of them all. Here are entirely new industries that are coming up from nowhere, from people's minds, the conceptual products that produce immense wealth and immense benefits to humanity. Tremendous. So the digital age is creating growth, wealth, and benefits that are unimaginable. That's why it'll continue to grow. We cannot go back to the world of levers, pulleys, and couriers. In fact, I suggest often to our military that we shoot in certain parts, but we're probably not going back. Since we're going forward, we're absolutely vulnerable in every one of these areas. I mentioned transportation of cars, but our airlines could be brought down. Our fighter craft could be brought down. Same is true of the systems in every one of your countries. So we have unbelievable opportunities, and we're realizing them. And at the same time, we have unbelievable challenges, and we must confront them. There will be no silver bullet. It doesn't exist. There will be no solution that stops hermetically any country, even the majority of attacks. It's not going to happen. We monitor the attacks in Beersheba. You should go and see the search center. We can monitor quite a bit. We can stop quite a bit. But the only way we can address this enormous challenge to enormous opportunities is to keep running ahead, to be ahead faster and faster and faster. This is a supreme test for our civilization. It is going to be tested not only by criminal organizations, by terrorists, but by other states. We have to combine forces. This is why we're holding this cyber conference here. It is to protect the present and ensure the future. No less than that. I welcome you to come to Israel. You couldn't have come to a better place for cybersecurity. We want your business. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, well, you're tangled up in a half mile of shit-covered tape? Frickin' actresses. All right, time for a little tension relief of my own.
And you know what else is great? Colonics.
Will you shut up? I got a window opening up at... Damn it, there's another one.
This is so exciting.
And another one. Shit, and another.
But that's not all. If you order now, you'll also receive...
No way. Yep, he's down.
But not forgotten. Come, Kriegerbots! Avenge your fallen comrade! What voice is that? Is that from Bullwinkle?
Get ready. He's on his way.
ice. Hennessy got me tripping, plus the brew I was sipping. Feeling warm blood dripping, I seen them load a second clipping. Retreated, I've been defeated. My life was ice like popsicles. Open the door, hit the floor, the hospital. It's on. It's on.
Getting closer to God in a tight situation. Let me be your angel and I'll be your protection. I stop breathing, damn, I see demons.
My heart's racing, a casualty of confrontation. Hoping one day I'll awaken, feeling my body start shaking. I've been mistaken, retaliation to come soon. Holding my gun wound on the floor of the hospital room. A silent cry for help as I look at the ceiling. My inner feeling telling me to start healing. Not in a million years I would want to end here. Wiping my tears, thinking of my long lost career. In this business of rap, now I'm flat on my back. Trying to put in place the face of this enemy cat. Cardiac control, I put a hold on my soul. 22 years old and my life done took us some toll. My body fold for numerous feelings I felt. Laying there lonely, watching my homie scream for help. I hear a doctor yelling directions to the meds. Cut open my threads, bring me to the nearest bed. Half dead, my inner head screaming, losing my breathing. Don't remember the good crumb, only the bad one. And now I can tell the depths of hell for evils I've done. Can't run, facing my worst of fears, leaving my physical as my spiritual descent steers. But wait, this can't be real. I feel the angel Jabril asking my name, overlooking my blood stain, go chain, easing my pain. From where he came, I don't know, but he's telling me it's not the right time to go. Back on my boat, two sucking the ooze from my mouth. As nurses run about trying to send me down south. Who shot ya? That's words from the detect and the doctor. Before I got flown and beamed down in the helicopter.
Getting closer to God in a tight situation. Let me be your angel and I'll be your protection. I stop breathing, damn, I see demons. Closer to God.
Breaking it down to the double helix, genetically mutated amino acid trips. Now you're in the groove like styluses, cause I cooked enough to program like computer viruses. Rhyme piloted by the lyrical trinity, with the key evidence to support divinity. Some will see falsely but never hear, so I back my fact with my proof to make it ever clear. From view to view, right through the bull, when you hear it you know, spiritual alliance, rhyme defiance with defiance of science. To kill complacency and the agency that wanna take over the fight and make you numb. They're trying to mac at a convent, they won't get none. One and all the one coexistence, infinite omnipotence.
Existence everywhere at the same time. Physically separated, synchronized mind. Street, studio, stages online. All's possible with existence everywhere at the same time. Physically separated, synchronized mind. Street, studio, stages online. All's possible with
I never fall behind, I'm never rushed ahead. Got the metronome click inside my head. Scoped it out, peeped out most of my town. Most songs got whack mixes, they call the underground. Gotta express the feeling, I ain't having it. Like Paz K jibbing the light, thinking of stabbing it. Skills prevail, all you possess take no offense. But don't profess lies within your mind, tempting stress. Factors leading to other illness. My crew groups at my home creating tracks for realness. It's combinations like this, divine style, keep cool, yo, the one evident. Influences are that question they never miss. The innovative lyrics, Chris, Cadence, Paris, Smith. Feeling me? Raise your hands if you can get with three cats, bringing back 4 years type ubiquity.
Existence everywhere at the same time. Physically separated, synchronized mind. Street, studio, stages online. All possible ways. Existence everywhere at the same time. Physically separated, synchronized mind. Street, studio, stages online. All possible ways.